So about 2009, I guess we decided when I had the self-serve dog wash, I had a booth at one of the festivals here in town, and it just happened that Melody and I were next to each other. She was working for a different organization at the time, but there was that little bit of imposter syndrome. And, do I belong here? That type of thing. And Melody and the other volunteers just made me feel really welcome. And since then, we've known each other and done a few things together. So I wanted to bring her on the show and talk about what she does. So I always like to start with, first of all, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you or find out more about you?
About the organization,
Right.
because you can always Google me, but
Right.
the organization is unchainedmelodies.org.
Okay.
There's a lot of information on our website. It's quite extensive. There's quite a few pages that cover a lot of the different programs that we have. So unchainedmelodies.org is the one-stop shopping for us.
Okay. Yeah, I was looking at the website in preparation uh, for this interview. There is a lot of information on there, a lot
Yeah.
of links to different interviews and stuff like that. It's very extensive. I noticed on there you didn't really start out with a love for, well, I shouldn't put it that way. You didn't really start out working with animals or have that kind of in your on your radar. So how did you get into this?
I really didn't. Not growing up. A lot of people, will say, "Oh, I've had this affinity for a certain animal, from the time that they were born or from a very young age." And of course, we had pets growing up, but I wasn't considered an advocate at that time or anything. It started my rescue journey started down in Florida when I adopted a dog that was in need. I had lived in a condo for a long time and I couldn't have a dog. So as soon as I moved into our house, first thing I did was, reach out to try to help a dog. I couldn't bring myself to go to the local shelter. So there was a group of dogs at the horse facility that I boarded my horse at, and that was where I got the first dog. And then I was working in a restaurant, and the restaurant next door had one of those sandwich boards. And they'd put the dogs up there for adoption. I decided my dog needed another dog, and that's how I got my first two dogs as an adult. But it wasn't until I moved to Florida, or from Florida to Missouri, that I got this passion. Because when I moved here, I just started seeing all the chain dogs, and that's how it all started. I just had to figure out how to get help for them.
Yeah. I find Columbia in particular is weird because we're very urban, I guess, in a lot of ways, as far as the university and the hospitals and stuff here.
Yeah.
But then we're right in the middle of this very rural area, and I know a lot of people I talk to have that rural mindset of it's just an animal, and they don't really give the dogs the attention that they need. I mean, dogs, just like people, are very social animals, and even if they're not chained, but if they're just left outside to their own devices,
Right.
it's not a good situation for them, for sure.
Right, and as far as the rural dogs, I another problem that I have is, working dogs. Okay, they're working dogs and they're outside, as looking over the herd, but they still need care.
Right.
And you see so many of these great peer type dogs out there, matted beyond belief. They don't get flea and tick prevention or anything, and that's just not right. I mean, this dog is out there working for you, protecting your flock. The least you can do is make the dog as comfortable as possible because it has to live out there with ticks and fleas and
Right.
the elements. So um, I think that's another issue that really just needs to be looked at.
Yeah.
People need to take care of them.
Yeah. That's funny. I don't know if you're familiar with Patricia McConnell, uh, trainer for. She's one of my favorite trainers. If you're not familiar with her, look her up.
I'm not
But
actually. I will.
okay, um, she. We'll talk later about it.
Yeah.
um, she has a working ranch, and she has. I mean, think of it. She has Great Pyrenees that guards the flock, but a lot of the pictures and whatnot, you see when the dog's not working, the dog is in the house, it's being groomed,
Exactly.
and all
Right.
of those things. And
Right. Right.
yeah, she's got some incredible stories. I won't go into that here, but Yeah, I'll definitely
Yeah, hunting dogs the
we'll
same
talk
thing.
later.
You know, they don't have to be in their pen their entire life
Right.
for them to hunt. You know, they don't lose their hunting abilities just because when they're not hunting, they come into the house as a family pet. I think that's a huge misconception.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Um, so you kind of talked about this a little bit. Was there one particular dog that kind of got you into this, or was it kind of the
Yes, and
group of dogs?
I have told this story a few times, but when we were coming up here looking for property, I had a horse, so we were looking for rural property so I could have my horse. And there was this one property that, you know, checked all the boxes with the realtor, and we pulled in, and there was this husky chained to a tree. This was mid-August. You know, the dirt was flying around, dry as a bone, no water out there. It was just jumping and flailing around because someone pulled in, and obviously it was excited and it wanted attention.
Right.
And I said to the realtor, "What's going on?" You know, "Oh, you know, didn't think it was a big deal." And I said, "Well, I'm not looking at this property." And she said, "Well, this has everything you want. It's got the fencing for the horse and, you know, the stalls for the horse and everything." I said, "Nope. If this is how these people treat their animals, I'm not giving them a dollar of my money." And she looked at me like I had two heads, like, "What's wrong with you?"
Right.
And I made her call the listing agent right there in the car and tell her why I was not looking at that property. But unfortunately, I never got help for that dog because I wasn't living here yet. I didn't have any resources. I really didn't even have the address or anything for that property because she never handed me the listing sheet because I said nope. So that kind of haunted me for a while. Hopefully, just that little bit of losing a sale made them think twice about what they were doing.
Yeah.
I can only hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that dog started it all. And that's when I started reaching out to everybody that I could think of in this area, you know, animal control and local rescues and the shelter and the police and the sheriff and anybody. And they all said, "Oh, they're not breaking any laws, nothing we can do."
Right.
And I just didn't think that was right.
I don't know. I have that for later, but we can get into it now since we kind of touched on it. So I know there have been some, I don't know if the ordinances or laws or what that you have really spearheaded with this kind of a situation.
Yeah.
Talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that.
Yeah, the local ordinances. Unfortunately, they only pertain to the city of Columbia. The ordinances that we have, they don't bleed into the county, but the awareness is there. And I do want to give a shout out to our animal control officers. We've got a really good team out there right now. We've got a great director for the health department, and they are very animal friendly, and they're doing everything they can to make the ordinances even not only stronger but easier to deal with. They're actually lifting some of the ordinances against feral cats. They're strengthening yet again the ordinances for the dogs by adding inclement weather clause to our tethering
Oh,
ordinance. That's actually happening right now. It's before City Council as we speak. It got tabled the last time, and it'll be up for discussion at the next City Council meeting. But in 2010 is when we got the first ordinance, and it wasn't very strong.
right.
They kind of threw me a bone, make me go away. And but you know, I kind of stayed on them to enforce what we had. And after 5 years, sometimes you just have to give it time to prove that it's not working. So 5 years later, we went back and showed why it wasn't working, and we asked that the animal control officers work smarter instead of harder. And those that ordinance was tightened up a lot, and now it's a pretty strong ordinance. So considered an anti-tethering ordinance, and there's quite a lot to it. But dogs have to, when they are out there, they're only able to be out there for a limited amount of time. Now, with the inclement weather clause, they're not allowed to be out there if we have any kind of a weather warning.
Oh,
Uh, Certain equipment is required, a proper collar, flat buckle collar. It can't be a chain or a rope or anything like that. Has to be a certain length of lead with swivels on each end. It cannot be the sole means of confinement for the dog. It needs proper shelter and water at all times. Food is a little iffy. I mean, you know, a dog, when people say, "Oh, it doesn't have any food," I mean, a dog's not going to eat food 24/7. So
right.
as long as the dog, it looks like it's been eating and it's of healthy weight, it does not have to have food all the time
Yeah.
in front of it. So, but those are the basics of the anti-tethering or ordinance. And so that happened in 2018.
I think often about my grandparents. They had a dog, but it was just never saw a dog in the house. It was always, yeah, exactly what you're talking about. It was the sweetest dog in the world.
Yeah.
I was, 7, 8 years old when we were going down to visit, and I was like, I, yeah, yeah, I just didn't understand it because we had a dog that, slept in the bed with me half the time, and
But the other one
just,
was out tied to the tree. Yeah.
and of course I was in Florida and we were in Virginia at that time, so it's like, what can you
So
do?
the reasoning behind it just really varies, like the small dogs can go in the house, but the big dogs can't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they give the training to the big dogs that they need. And, one strike, out you go.
Yeah.
Little dogs may be easier to pick up and got that kind of thing, but it's usually the bigger dogs. But I will tell you, we've gotten plenty of small dogs off the chain too. Everything from poodles to pit bulls. But when I approach people or I talk to people about, why, it's really random. Some people don't think anything of it. Other people are like, well, it can't come in the house because it's not potty trained, or it's too hairy, or it's too big, or it's not my dog. I hear that a lot too. Oh, it's my granddaughter's dog, or it's my son's dog. And well, no, really, it's your dog. It's on your property. You're responsible
Right.
for it.
Yeah.
And then they look at me like, I am? Like they just think it's not their responsibility. And it's funny growing up, like you say, you'd had the dog out there. So many of our volunteers are so passionate about what we do because they grew up that way.
Mm-hmm.
Either they had a dog that was tethered out or tied out, or a family member did, or they walk by a house in their neighborhood that did, and they felt so bad for that dog. And so now they're involved in an organization that actually helps those dogs, and they're very passionate about it because they experienced it.
Do you have a favorite only in this job story, funny, chaotic, heartwarming, whatever?
A story that sticks out in my mind?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
that one dog that.
Well, there's quite a few of them, but one that was quite funny. He just recently passed, but his name was Gator, and he was on the outskirts of Columbia here. Actually, like right on the edge. Actually, could have possibly been within the city limits, right on the edge. And he was reported to us, and we went over there, and it was pouring rain, and he just had a plastic covered box with a chain that was about 4 feet long and really thin, just real bad conditions. And so I talked to the owners, and once again, oh, that's my daughter's dog. You'll have to talk to my daughter. And so we went back the next day, and I brought a doghouse and straw and a big bone for him to chew on, and I gave him all of that and made him a little happier. And the daughter came out and said, "You want to take my dog?" And I said, "Well, I'd like to give this dog a better life." "Well, you going to neuter him?" I said, "Yes, ma'am. We will neuter him so that, he's healthier and, we don't have unwanted litters." And she said, "Hmm, you want to neuter my boyfriend?" I said, "Sure. Pop him in the van. I'll take him to the clinic right now." And she said, "Okay, you can take my dog too." And I just went and got him off the chain and got him in the truck, and off we went before she changed her mind.
Right.
So sometimes levity does pay off. You
Oh
build
yeah.
these relationships with these people that have dogs in these situations, and you have to be careful what you say. You can't use negative terms like abuse, neglect, anything like that, because in their mind, they're not. You
Right.
just have to convince them that they need better.
And again, not to promote something we're not really talking about, but that book we were talking about by Lisa Van Fleet, the human half of dog training, it
Oh,
talks a lot
right.
about
Yeah,
approaching people so that you're not being, uh, how do I want to put it, accusatory or
exactly.
condescending or
Exactly.
something like
You have to
that.
be very careful.
Yeah,
One wrong word, that door closes and it'll never open up again. So
right,
you do have to be very
exactly.
careful with that. I don't have a psychology degree, but
Right.
I think I use a lot of psychology on these people.
Well,
I just show up as a friendly, helpful person that isn't accusatory. I don't threaten them with the laws or anything like that. Only if I can't get anywhere and the dog really needs help is when I will turn to the law. Even locally, I try to work with people before I even call in animal control. First of all, sometimes I will get further without, just throwing a summons at them. And secondly, they've got a full plate. So if I don't have to contact them, I don't.
right.
They're busy enough, just like we are. Yeah.
Oh yeah, but I find that a lot with the group classes I do, and you've got so many personalities that you're working for. When I say psychology, well, at least the beginnings of it, it kind of describes the why, but it doesn't teach you those skills as far as dealing with people.
Yeah.
Maybe the higher up, above the degree I got, uh, kind of starts going into that. But I think a lot of it's just natural talent, just being able to deal with people and approach them so that they
Yeah.
feel comfortable. And
And being able to talk to you. I always tell people I kind of have the gift of gab, in case you haven't noticed.
right.
And we just start
No,
talking.
I said before, I always enjoy a conversation. You just never know where it's going to go. It's just so easy
Yeah.
to talk to. I love it.
Yeah. One time, another funny story is, gosh, I was talking to this guy for at least 20 minutes. It was brutally hot, and he was out there mowing his lawn. It was an electric mower, but it was a push mower. And I pulled in, and I was loaded with all kinds of things to help these two dogs that were on his property. And I took water. And so I pulled in and said, it's way too hot. You know, he was fairly older,
Mm-hmm.
and told him, it's too hot to be out here doing this. Can't it wait for another day? And we talk. And 20 minutes later, I said, can I really tell you why I'm here? And he said, it wasn't to bring me a bottle of water because you're worried about me stroking out. I said, nope. I said, I want to talk to you about those two dogs up there on the hill that you have, chained up. And he said, oh. And his wife called later that day. It was quite a few years ago. I had the phone on the wall that I had to pick up and answer.
Oh yeah.
And I hear you were talking to my husband this afternoon about my dogs, and my stomach kind of fell to my toes, like, oh God, what did I get myself into? And she said, we'd like you to come and pick up our dogs. We'd like a better life for them. And I was like, wow, oh, okay. And I
Thanks.
got in the van and off I went and grabbed those dogs. So sometimes you just have to talk to people and make them realize, because sometimes they just don't realize that dogs need so much more than food, water, and a plastic box.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's very much a mentality of, oh, it's just an animal. We don't need to worry about it. It's like I said, I just don't understand it for any animal, dogs or horses or whatever.
And that is true. There is that mentality, that it is just an animal, but I got to tell you, there's no reason or rhyme about, you know, I've taken dogs from very high end homes to from dilapidated
Mm.
trailers in town to farms out in rural areas and everything in between.
Yeah.
So sometimes, the economic, uh, you know, um, aspect of a person doesn't matter, or where they're living doesn't really matter. It's that mentality of, oh, just put him out there. He's fine,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they're not fine. They're not mentally fine. They're not physically fine. As you know, as a trainer, they
Right.
need mental and physical stimulation. So, yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what once the dogs come off the chain, how do they react? And I'm sure there's a lot of variability depending on the dog itself.
Yeah, there is, and it really doesn't depend on breed or size. It just depends on how they handled that isolation. I kind of compare it to a human being, thrown in jail and or prison. And some people handle it better than others, right? Some people just kind of succumb to the life that they're living while they're in there, and then they get out and they can really, turn themselves around and make something of themselves. Others just can't seem to function outside of those four walls. And it's kind of the same with the dogs. Some of them do transition very quickly, others not so much. Others will take a long time, and some don't become mentally stable ever if they're that broken. So it really, really depends. So when we get a dog off the chain, we have some kennels here at our facility that we're here at now, and almost every dog, unless there is a real exception and they're just friendly, happy, fairly obedient, and they can go straight into a foster home, come to our kennels here, and they immediately get, intake, vaccines, dewormer, all that stuff, so that they're, healthy. um, and then they get basic training, leash walking on the training harness, basic obedience. Some of them are really shut down, and it takes days for us to even be able to get them out of the kennel. Others are so jumpy and so outward that they're knocking you down. So every one of them's different. So our volunteers go through, a lot of, um, I don't want to say training because they're not trainers, and they do remind me of that all the time, but they're not trainers, they're dog walkers. But teaching and learning body language and trying to figure out what this particular dog needs, to become adaptable to his new life and be able to go into a foster home and get adopted.
Right. And I've been asked in interviews I've done, what's the biggest thing I wish people would learn or whatever. Body language is such a
It's
big
huge.
thing, and
Yeah.
the example I always give is, when I was growing up in the '70s, if a dog's wagging their tail, they're friendly, and we know that's not always true.
Different wags.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and so if people just learn a little bit about body language, even those low stress signals,
Mm-hmm.
yawning and look aways,
Well, with what
lip
you do
licks,
with the family parent certification that you have, it's huge because
family pause,
family pause parent.
parent education.
Yes.
Yeah,
And again, we use that website all the time to educate
awesome.
people. It's just a great resource, and the body language for parents to learn and to understand kids squeezing, pulling on the neck, and
Mm.
it's very obvious sometimes that the dogs are just so uncomfortable,
Yeah, I was watching a video the other day, and
so scary.
they were fostering a dog, and that was great. But fortunately, the dog was really tolerant of the children. But tolerance is not
You never know.
enjoyment.
Yeah, you
And,
never know when they're not going to be.
right,
Yeah,
and one bite, who's going to
yeah,
suffer the consequences? It's not
right.
the kid that was pulling on the ears,
Yep.
unfortunately.
And the same thing with chain dogs. Kids will just run up to a chain dog,
Mhm.
especially a big fluffy one that's jumpy and
Right.
wagging its tail, but it's not necessarily friendly wagging its tail because it wants to have that child come and pet it. And it's still the number
Yeah.
one reason for bite cases
Yeah.
is kids. Yeah.
That's what is it? Over just over 50, no, just under 50% of all children under 15 are bitten by dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to say my mission, but it's something I work towards preventing that.
Yeah.
I was bit when I was a child. It's it was no fun. It got
Yeah.
stitches and scar on the back of
Oh
my
wow.
leg.
And some people just that ruins them for life
Yeah,
around to be around dogs. There's just that fear gets instilled in them from a
yeah,
bite, and especially breeds. I hear that sometimes too. I'm scared of this breed because I was bit by one. Well, you weren't bit by the breed necessarily, you were bit by a dog,
right.
right? So they blame it on the breed though.
Yeah, I always joke. I've been. I think I've talked about it. I've been bitten 5 times by since I've been working with dogs professionally. Uh, three of them was I was doing the dog's nails, and it just happened. It was a what was it? King Charles Spaniel, an English Cocker, and an American Cocker. It's a spaniel, so I'm always just a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like I said, it's joking. It's those dogs, and it's a stressful situation. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's one of those things you kind of try and make it as pleasant as possible. But they've got to be.
That is one thing I don't do.
Oh, really?
I do not trim nails. Oh no, it makes my skin crawl. I can't. I think I'm just so fearful that I'm gonna snip it too far, or I can do injections and sub-Q fluids and all that
See,
stuff,
but
but
that
give
I
me
can't
give
do.
me
The
nail
nails, I'll be
clippers, and I'm
that
like,
way.
no,
Yeah.
somebody else. Luckily we've got, you know, volunteer groomers that help us with that, and some of the volunteers are fine with it. I will do the little puppies in the nursery, like the little tiny little thin ones. I'll do
Oh,
those. That's about it.
I have scars from those puppy nails, and
Mm,
they're just playful and trying to get attention. But
sharp.
man, those things are sharp.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they are.
it's unreal. So that brings me to another question I have further down. But all the rescues are constantly looking for fosters. But like me, for example, Malcolm is dog aggressive, and so it's kind of difficult to bring another dog into the house.
Hmm.
But what other ways, like people live in an apartment and they can't have dogs, what ways
Hmm.
can they help out? What
Hmm.
ways could they volunteer?
Yeah, so many ways. Our nursery is really popular to take care of mom and pups in the nursery. We do have dog walkers. We need very savvy people to bring on as dog walkers, and they go through some pretty rigorous training as well. But outings, we will approve people to take dogs out on outings. Events, lots of events. I know people see us out there all the time, everywhere. We try not to miss one. So we always need help at events. Transport. We started a new program where we're transporting dogs from southern Missouri up here and then across the state line. So we're always looking for transporters locally and for that program. Um, gosh, so many things. Um, Fundraising is a big one.
Mm.
You know, anybody can do their own fundraiser, be it a bake sale or there's so many things. People will make wreaths and sell them or make dog treats and sell them. So there's a lot of ways to help, you know. So, you know, there's a chart out there that says, you know, if you can't foster, volunteer. If you can't volunteer, then donate. If you can't donate, then share. And that's very true. All of those things make it all come together. The old cliche, it takes a village.
Right.
And it certainly takes the entire city, county, and all of America to make it happen.
Yeah. My wife and I constantly say that it takes a village.
Yeah. It's very true. It takes everybody working together and everybody finding their niche. You know, some people are better at certain things than others, and it doesn't mean you have to be able to do it all. If you're just good at one thing, then that's what you do, you know?
So I wanted to talk a little bit about the adopting and well, mainly the adopting. So, uh, what's something the adopter should know before they get one of the dogs, as far as the history or how to prepare the home or
So we are trying more and more and more to make this easier for people because, you know, when you first you have to apply so that we can vet the application.
sure.
Not everybody, even though they think they're the right family for a certain dog, might not necessarily be so, and we point out the reasons why. And I think one thing that we're known for is making the best match. You know, people just can't apply and just walk off with a dog.
Right.
You know, it's a little bit different than the shelter. We're not trying to, nothing against the shelter, but, you know, we're not, we believe in quality, not quantity. You
Sure.
know, less is more. We'd rather get the dogs into the right home first and make it their forever home. And if they're having problems along the way, we are their support system and their resource for any of the things that are going wrong. So, one of the ways we do that is with our foster to adopt program. And so, every one of our dogs go on a foster to adopt, be it a 10-week-old puppy or a 10-year-old senior. They all go through the same process and make sure it's the right fit for them so that they can kind of try it on for size, if you will, for a week or so. And if they need longer because it's taking more time to adjust, then that's okay too.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to educate, you know the breed and the characteristics of the dog because, again, some of our dogs are more shut down than others, some are very outward. So they need to know what they're getting into. We try to be very transparent with that. And sometimes it's not the right fit, so we'll just kind of, you know, move them toward another dog that we think is a better fit. Sometimes they think they want a fluffy dog, but the fluffy dog they're applying for is a lot of work. So maybe we can, you know, guide them toward another dog that might be short haired, but it's a better fit.
Yeah. I kind of hate to say Malcolm that I mentioned earlier. Uh, we got him from a different rescue. I won't name names, but uh, they told us, you know, yeah, he's a great dog. He's great with kids. He's great with other dogs. And I found out after the fact that he was because there is such a need for fosters. They had like 6 dogs in the home, which is just way too much. But is that whole he was outnumbered,
Mm,
so he was just like, I'm just going to hang back and not get into any trouble.
okay.
And so now we've got him at home, and the kids have fallen in love with him, and you know, I can work with them, kind of a thing that hubris, dare I say, but
Hmm.
yeah, so it was a totally different situation as
Yeah.
far as the dog they told us he was and the dog that we actually got.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say totally. He was a very sweet dog, and we loved him to death. But
But that transition being from 6 dogs to how many dogs in the
well,
home
it was 2 at the time, and Duncan was older, and he passed shortly after we got him.
makes
So,
a big difference, you
but
know? The
yeah,
dog's going from a pack to, you know, just one other dog, too. So
yeah.
transition is huge.
Yeah, and we had started to notice problems before Duncan passed away, and it had nothing to do with Malcolm coming into the home.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, we
yeah,
have a dog right now that has having has had to move from foster to foster because we just came off spring break and a holiday and everything, and there's a lot of juggling around those times of years. Dogs moving
right,
from one foster home to another foster home. She's having a very hard time going from place to place. So then her
sure,
her next move has to be her final move because
yeah,
she won't eat for like 3 4 days. She gets really shut down. She does not transition well, so she just needs to find her one and only and her final landing spot.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know it's that I've written down the rule of threes. The
yeah.
3 days to what is it? 3 days to
3 weeks, 3 months.
3 days to get used to the environment, 3 weeks to get used to the routine, and 3 months for the personality to come out.
Yeah,
But some of the stuff I was reading again in preparation for this is some of these rescue dogs can take, it's a 3, 6, 9, 3 days, 3 6 weeks, 9 months, or even 6, 12, 18.
yeah.
Um,
That really is just a basic guideline.
yeah,
Every dog is individual and it could vary. Yeah,
right. And I'm sure if you have a sensitive dog like you're talking
yeah,
about, just moving from one house to another. And well, Malcolm again, I don't mean to keep going on him, but I noticed shortly after we got him, like a month or so, a month and a half after we got him, we went on vacation. We always take our dogs with us, and just as we were packing up the kennel and everything, he was, it's that look on his face like, oh shit, here we go again. And no, everything's cool. You're gonna be with us.
yeah,
You know, it's all good. But
yeah. Panic.
it's got to be tough. He was what 2 when we got him. He'd been a street dog and then several foster homes, so he'd been through that several times.
Yeah,
And
it's tough on them.
yeah, I think he realizes now that oh boy, now I'm going for a car ride and it's 12 hours to Florida where we my mom lives. But yeah, he's gotten a lot better about it now. He's 8 now, so he's had a few years practice. So we kind of talked about setting up the environment, but pretty much have gone through all the questions. The only one I have left to mention is, so I've talked about it. I maintain the mid-move pet calendar. Actually, I think I was talking to you. I'd seen you at 2 events over one weekend or something like that. And I was like,
Probably.
we need a
Yes, I remember
calendar
that.
so
Yeah,
we're not having, yeah.
yeah.
So I've
Crossing
really,
over so everybody knows what's going on so
right,
that you
and you're
can,
not rushed from one event to the next,
yeah,
or at least are aware of it beforehand.
yeah.
But,
We usually are though.
yeah, even still, and particularly we're getting into that season,
Yeah.
spring and summer, so it gets a little nuts, I know. But so that being said, we were talking about the health fair coming up. That's July, is that right?
July 19th.
Okay.
Yes.
Um, and
No, I'm sorry. It's June 29th.
June.
That's our Rock the River is July.
Oh, okay.
June is the pet health fair.
See, okay.
Yeah, they kind of all run
Trying to
together.
keep up with
Yeah.
all this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the pet health fair, yes, it's going to be bigger and better this year. We've had it for 3 years here at our facility, and it's maxed out. So we had to move to another facility. So it's at the Reichman. Am I saying that right?
Right. Yeah.
Pavilion at Stevens Lake Park.
Mhm.
And so we'll have lots of inside vendors and plenty of room outside for outside vendors and demonstrations. And yeah, it's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to it this year.
Yeah, I'm excited to be a part of it. I need to get my registration in. The first year there was a nominal fee to get in. It seemed to have gotten rid of that, so this will be free to the open public.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. There was a nominal fee, and they got a goodie bag filled with stuff or whatever. And then we've done it different, a little different every year to kind
Sure.
of figure out what works best. Free is best.
Right.
Free always works.
Right.
So this year, we're again, if you bring food for the pet pantry, dog or cat food, you get a free raffle ticket to put in one of the baskets. And then everybody can just come in for free. And this year, there's no real goodie bag, but there is a bag. So you can go around and get your goodies from all the different vendors.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of conferences I go to, they do stuff like that, and people are just running around. Oh, where'd you get that? I gotta
Yeah.
go see them. And
Yeah. It's kind
yeah,
of competition for who has the best swag.
right.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna have to come up with something. I usually do something for the raffle, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's really all the big questions I have. Unless there's something else you want to talk
Okay.
about,
No, I don't think
or
so.
anything else coming up, or um,
Just we have that other event at Rock the River, but I'd rather just focus on the pet health fair
sure.
for this
Yeah,
because
one thing at a time.
that's next. Yes, that's next. And it's very different too. Like there'll be vendors at Rock the River, but they're more makers or crafters
Oh, okay.
type thing. Whereas pet health fair is all about, health for pets.
Right.
So it's just different,
Mhm.
And the pet health fair is not an adoption event by any means, and Rock the River will have all of our dogs there and stuff.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's just different.
Okay. So to wrap up, I used to watch. I don't know if you ever saw Inside the Actors Studio. What was his name? James Lipton hosted it. He
No.
would end every show. He would interview a actor, hence the name. But he would end every show with just 10 questions. Ask 10 questions, and it's just short, one answer, one short
Okay.
sentence, something like that. So I'm just going to throw these out at you.
Okay.
Just first thing that comes to your mind. Just something fun to end on.
Okay.
So first question is puppy breath or Frito toes?
Ugh, Frito toes.
Okay. I kind of lean towards that myself. Tennis ball or squeaky toy?
Squeaky toy.
See, I like the tennis balls. They're not as noisy, and I don't know, it takes a
Just
little effort from you.
so many dogs chew them,
That's true.
and they won't bring them back.
And I will admit, I use squeaky toys a lot in my training. If the dog's very distracted, that's
Yeah.
a lot of dogs. That's one of the best ways to get their attention back on you. Is just that little squeak squeak, and yeah. Um, Furniture privileges. Do you let your dog sleep in the bed or get on the couch?
Yes.
Yeah. I get people asking me all the time, is it okay? And it's like, I don't know, is it? Like, if you're okay with it,
Yeah, it's not okay for our fosters to allow the dogs in the bed because if they get adopted to someone that doesn't want the dog in the bed, we don't want to set them up for failure because, as you know, once you get a dog in the bed, you never get them out.
oh yeah,
But we require the dogs to be able to get on the couch. Absolutely.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's like when our dogs had always slept in the bed with us, and when our first daughter was born, it's a logistical issue of how we're gonna. We always want a parent in between the dog and the baby,
Yeah.
in particular infant, and yes, it does a little bit of logistics. Our daughter didn't sleep in the bed with us, but there was a crib right next to it,
Mm-hmm.
kind of. So my wife was breastfeeding, so it just
Mm-hmm.
made things a lot easier.
Yeah,
So yeah,
if you don't
there's
want dog hair
there's
on your
legitimate
couch,
reasons
then
to,
you're declined. I'm
right?
sorry.
um, let's see. What is the oddest thing you've had a dog destroy?
Oddest. How about biggest?
Oh, that works too.
I had two sisters. Unfortunately, one just passed,
Oh,
and they got adopted together, and they broke out of their kennel, and they ripped an entire sectional couch apart, like the whole thing.
that's motivation.
I walked in and was just. I would have loved to have seen my face when I walked in because I was just like I couldn't believe my eyes. But the strangest thing, strange, I don't know. I had a dog eat an entire leather wallet one time. It was wrapped under the Christmas tree, and I just wasn't thinking.
I
And little by little, it pooped out.
smelled that leather.
Yeah.
I was visiting my brother one time in Washington D.C. and as I was getting ready to leave, I couldn't find my wallet. I had my money, credit cards, ID,
Ooh.
driver's license. I had driven out there, and so fortunately, my brother owed me some money and was able to pay it back at that point. So I had money to get home, and a couple of days later, I got a little package from him, and he said, I can't remember the dog's names now, but he said the dogs found your wallet, and as a reward, they ate it. He just gave me back all the scraps of my wallet.
Oh my
My
gosh.
ID, my
Oh
driver's
wow.
license was
Well,
bitten, and yeah, so I can empathize with that. But, so who in the dog field do you geek out over? So, like I mentioned, Patricia McConnell is probably my favorite trainer. Who do you?
probably Victoria Stillwell.
Okay,
Yeah, I really like her.
I do too. It's been fun watching her progression
Yeah.
from those early episodes,
Yeah.
and that's one of the reasons I admire her. Is there's stuff she did then that she says she won't do now, and now
Yep.
that she's known better,
She's always pivoting. Yeah.
it's always educating.
Yep.
Yeah, that to me is what makes a good, well, anything,
Yep.
as long as you're willing to learn
Yeah.
as you go. So what causes you to get the zoomies?
Stress might be one. How about that?
If that's it.
I have a lot of energy, so but probably stress keeps me going,
Mhm.
and I do have a lot of energy. I don't really go to the gym or anything like that, but I'm always moving, and I think it's because there's always something to do.
Right.
Rescue is a busy, busy entity,
Okay.
and there's always something to do, more to do. again, pivoting, doing things differently, learning from your mistakes. So I guess I always am zooming around in my head
Okay.
for sure.
Okay. If you could speak dog for 5 minutes, what is the first thing you would ask?
Ask a dog, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, how you feeling?
Yeah. I always have thought about it, and it's always something along those
Yeah,
lines. It's,
how you feeling?
are
Tell
you
tell
okay?
tell me what
Are
you
you?
do. Tell me what's going on, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah, you like your life, can I do something
Right.
better for you? Especially boy, the sick dogs, if they could only tell us.
Yeah.
The ones that are in pain
And
and
of course, I mean, even though they're domesticated, they still have that wild, quote
they hide their
unquote, trait
pain
where they
well.
hide it.
Yeah.
And yeah, Malcolm was limping, and at first I didn't even notice. My wife pointed it out. I didn't see anything, and then
Yeah, got worse
as
and
I
worse.
caught him, uh, and he's getting older and getting arthritis and stuff. So we're starting to look into that. Unfortunately, but he'll be taken care of. So if the rescue had a theme song, what would it be?
Who let the dogs out?
Okay.
It used to be our theme song,
Oh,
actually.
really?
Yes, it was
Okay.
on. It was on our recording, like your voicemail.
Oh, right.
Before, nobody listens to voicemail anymore. Now everybody's texting. But yes,
Right.
and a couple of the volunteers. It was on mine actually, and a couple of the volunteers were like, "Melody, can you please change that song?" Because yeah, who let the dogs out for sure.
Okay. In just a few words, what does forever home mean?
To me, it means being totally dedicated to that dog, no matter what you're going through in your own life. You took on a responsibility, and no matter what, you have to figure out how to keep your dog healthy, happy, and as a family member for life.
Hmm. Yeah, that resonates. I know several people who go out and they would adopt dogs, and it's just people I work with. My day job, they adopt a dog or whatever, and I'm like, "Oh, kids don't think it's fun anymore. It's getting too big." And fortunately, at least everyone that I've talked to, they uh, were able to go back to either the rescue or the breeder, depending on where they got it.
And so that to me is wrong too, because all you're doing is tying up resources. I mean, rescues weren't designed to just give a dog back to or to just help you rehome a dog because you don't want it anymore.
Right.
I think people are abusing rescues. It's a whole nother conversation,
Oh,
but
yeah.
they are abusing rescues and shelters as just a dumping ground. Now, don't get me wrong, circumstances happen where people have to rehome their dog or find another
Oh,
place for
yeah.
their dog.
I dealt with some of those too.
Things
It's
happen.
unfortunate,
But
but
these
yeah.
other, minimal reasons or it's just an inconvenience now is unacceptable to me. So, um,
Yeah. I agree, and I just meant from the dog standpoint, instead of just being left on the side of the road
yeah,
or something like that. At least they had somewhere that they could go to
yeah.
that they were going to be taken care of. So uh,
But yeah,
yeah,
a forever home means a forever home.
right,
And if you,
absolutely,
and one of the questions on our application is exactly that. What's your contingency plan is the question. What's your contingency plan? If you don't know what that word means, look it up because it means what are you going to do if something happens?
right,
And so that is a question on there. And if they say, well, we'll just return to the rescue, going to have a conversation with you about that because we're not here to just take back every dog that it becomes an inconvenience for you.
right,
There's more dogs out there to rescue, and that's why we're here.
yeah. Last one. So, do you have a phrase that inspires you, keeps you motivated, a quote, a mantra?
Until there is none, I guess. And that is a shelter phrase, but for me, it's until there's no more chained dogs. And until there's no more chained dogs, I guess would be my quote because I do say that quite often because there's other things I would like to do
Right.
before I leave this world, but not until there aren't any chained dogs because I just feel like that's my purpose.
Mhm.
Um, I'd love to start a temporary foster entity where people go in the hospital and they need part time for their dog kind of thing, but I can't do both. So
Right.
there's a real need for that. We get a request for that a lot. So until there's no more chain dogs, dot, dot, dot.
Yeah. That's good. Stuff like that, a lot of shelters say it and stuff, but it's the people that are in it, they really take it hard. It's just been something that's very flippant and, oh, that's what everybody says, kind of a thing. It's become something because it actually means something.
Mm.
I don't know, I'm rambling, so there we go. I have a tendency. Um,
Me too.
yeah, that's all I have. So,
Okay.
you want to give the contact information again, or the website?
Yeah, the website is unchainedmelodies.org.
Okay. A whole lot of information.
Can always be more.